Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Atif Agha. He's a father of three, a runner, and a tech enthusiast. I have Karen Loomis, who is a 20-year professional at marketing, branding, and advertising, and an adjunct professor. And then I have Jeff Glauser. He's a father, a writer, a coach, and the owner of Brand Scribed. Today, the question I want to ask you is, what do you do when someone steals your work and uses it as their own? Karen, can you kick us off?
Well, it's interesting. So as part of being an adjunct instructor, some of the early training was very much heavily centered around plagiarism, which they really intended that to be about copy more so than creative execution. But this is my second semester teaching, and right out of the gate, I had one student accuse another student of stealing her work. And our work is very exposed because as part of the creative process, we do a lot of peer review and things of that nature. So my first instinct was to be really annoyed that anybody would even think to steal somebody else's work, because that's just not an ethic that I even have. And so I kind of paused and I thought, let me check in with my director of the program and see, even though I know there's a long list of things to do in this case. And then as I progressed through the morning and looked at the work and compared the two work, there really was no copying. This was a particular exercise where there was only really 2 or 3 paths to go. And so there wasn't that issue. But I had concerns about this individual, obviously being concerned about the other. So I spoke to both individuals about it and said, hey, this is what happened. I hold a transparent classroom. Part of the creative process is to visual inspiration, to steal other people's ideas, to make them your own. And in this case, there just wasn't present. But it happens a lot. There's somewhat of, in the advertising industry, the whole idea that stealing someone's idea, making it your own, is kind of a compliment to the original person. So I'll leave you with that.
Interesting.
So this is an interesting perspective. I think the original question was about what do you do when someone steals your idea, right? So it was what's your personal feeling going on? And I think Karen touches an important point. If you're in a position where you are actually validating someone else's claim, that's an important position to be in. And I think if you have a history with those people, like, you manage a team, people come in and could complain, say, this was my idea, or he's trying to run with it and he's trying to get all the credit for it in workplace. And you would try to turn it around and try to understand what's really going on. And if you're in a position where you need to acknowledge, you may try to acknowledge both people, because sometimes people have ideas, but they're not good executioners. And the other people who may not come up with the brilliant idea, but they execute it and they make it happen. So they both deserve some credit in eventually getting the results done. I think it's important to understand how to juggle that and how to balance it between two folks.
Yeah, agreed. I'd say the consensus here is that it really depends. For example, if it's intellectual property, for example, my written work, then yeah, that would be a form of plagiarism unless there was an attribution. If it's the stealing of an idea or a concept, honestly, I may actually be flattered. So I think it was alluded to, imitation is the highest form of flattery. And I would tell people that work for me, the old saying, good artists borrow, great artists steal. You need to be somewhat savvy in order to kind of build off of what's already created to then have something that's then bigger and better from there. I mean, in all honesty, there's very few original ideas anymore. And that's what happens when human civilization exists for thousands and thousands of years. And everything is inspired by something. So that said, there is a gray issue. If by taking the idea, it removes the exclusivity of it that led to monetary gain for the creator, where do you go from there? That's something that I would say would need to have a little bit more scrutiny if you're actually taking the livelihood of somebody else by making that idea your own.
I had a situation on social media where I had someone take a post that I had written, wholesale copy it, and post it on their page. And I wrote underneath it, oh, this looks really familiar. It's interesting that you don't have any kind of attribution on it. And he replied to me and said, well, I don't know where I really got it. It was just an idea I came up with. And I was like, I know where you got it. You liked my post of it not 10 minutes ago. And it turned into a really ugly conversation. And he was nasty to me and ended up finally blocking me. And I ended up blocking him because if you're going to steal my work, I'm going to actually block you. But it was interesting to me that he had absolutely no qualms. And he told me so. He's like, well, once you post something on social media, it's no longer yours. It can be used however it wants. I don't think that's true. Just because it's on social media doesn't mean it's fair game for you to steal wholesale.
No, Robyn, I want to acknowledge what you felt, but at the same time, I think we need to get past these personal feelings and how everything is so exposed these days.
What do you mean?
What I mean is, like, when you share an idea, it's your original post. If it comes down to a point where you just want to get a credit for it, and he may not be the right person to give you credit, well, so be it. My point is, you did share it first. If it ever come to the court, you can prove it. Your timing was before him. Other than that, the people who may be acknowledging him or he's using this, you just cannot stop it anymore. People can just take a picture on a camera and go with it. I think we have to take responsibility of managing our feelings towards who really is trying to spend time and get worked up with. Even at workplace, right? You can sit in a meeting, you say something, somebody listens to it, and 10 days later, they may be running with that idea. The point is, we have to learn to say it right, say it finest possible the first time, and make sure it's documented or it's somehow being heard by the people that we're trying to get it to. And
so if someone takes credit for your work, are you saying just let it go?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I think it's a matter of understanding, did I not make the right approach and first time sharing the idea? Did I not do it the right way? I mean, are we talking about music that can, there's different things, right? If it's plagiarism, it's obviously against the law. If they're stealing a really creative idea that you first came up with, well, that's different. But I'm talking about journal ideas, right? You're trying to solve a problem, and what's the best way to solve a problem? And your boss gets, maybe he did it. Well, no, it was my original idea. Well, okay, you make it heard. I think you learn how to communicate it properly the next time, and then you do it. Given your boss is not biased and you're in a positive environment, you just learn how to do it the right way next time.
Interesting. Okay, well, we disagree on that. Go ahead, Karen.
But I would also like to add that in this particular industry that I'm in, and Jeff's in as well, there are very specific copyright infringement and trademark infringement laws. And I've had it happen to me, like when I was in my big corporate career, we were doing interesting things. I won't say innovative things, interesting things from an advertising perspective that the lesser successful people in the industry would steal our ideas and mimic it to what I call brand drafting, right? So you're drafting on somebody else's brand. And that is where you kind of go like, if we felt like it was that important in the corporate level, we would have trademarked it. And we trademarked darn near everything and copyrighted things. And that is the purpose of it. But on the other hand, when I make those kind of recommendations to businesses that you really need to get this copyrighted or trademark and they don't do it, and then years down the road, a Carvana comes along and steals the tagline I wrote, I go, this is what I do for myself. I wrote the tagline, you stole it. Thank you. Additionally, I want to go back to the relationships of the people involved. Like, what made this original person so worried about her work that she would blame somebody else? That was the bigger issue than the actual plagiarism.
It's a tough situation. We're pretty much in the wild, wild west right now when it comes to information and how it's accessed. It's the age of instant gratification and repurposing and trying to go viral. And if it's out there, people are going to try to seize on it, especially if they think that it's something that's going to give them leverage for their own brand image or their own public perception. You got to kind of pick and choose as far as if it's something that's that important, then you're going to make the effort to protect it as well.
It's interesting for me, if I write something and someone whole scale steals it and claims it as their own, then I'm going to point out, hey, that's not your work. You didn't do that. Like I see sometimes where people are doing something similar to quick hits where they have panel discussions and whatever. I'm like, yeah, go you have your own panel discussion. So the idea and the taking an idea and building on it, I have no problem with that. But when someone wholesale steals my wording, I'm like, dude, that is so not cool.
Somebody screenshotting what you did and just post it as their own, that's wrong. But the key thing is, absolutely it's wrong, right? But there are other ideas that just may be out there floating, right? If it's somebody close to you or maybe your coworker, you have to understand that you're also learning about that person. Is he not acknowledging you? Is he doing it intentionally, not giving you the acknowledgement of what he took from you in terms of an idea? And you learn about that person. Next time, be careful. Don't just throw an idea in front of him. And again, it depends what's at stake, because that's what gets it all worked out. If it's a promotion, now I'm going to stand up and say, this was my idea. I want to talk about it. But if it's just something along the way, well, I learned something about you. I don't see the integrity that I wish I have in all of my coworkers, but lesson learned.
Yeah. Well, that is our 10 minutes. So I'm going to cut us off there. I love that we're ending on when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you each again really soon.